very excited when I arrived at Thornfield Hall. The house was large, but it seemed very quiet. Mrs. Fairfax met me at the door. She was an old lady with a kind face.
Sit down, Miss Eyre. You look tired after your journey later. You will meet Adele.
Is Adele my student?
Yes, she is. She is French. Mr. Rochester wants you to teach her English.
Who is Mr. Rochester?
Didn't you know? Thornfield Hall belongs to Mr. Rochester. I only work for him.
Is Mr. Rochester here now?
No, he is away. He doesn't come very often to Thornfield. I don't know when he will return.
Later, I met Adele. She was a very little girl. I spoke to her in French and began to teach her English. She enjoyed her lesson, and I enjoyed teaching her. I like Adele, and I like Mr. Fairfax too. It was quiet at Thornfield Hall, and sometimes I felt a little bored, but everybody was kind to me there. Afternoon, I walked to the village to a post letter. It was winter, and there was ice on the road. As I was walking back to Thornfield Hall, I heard a noise behind me. It was a horse. A man was riding towards Thornfield Hall. I stood on side and the horse went past. The man did not see me. He was a stranger with dark hair. Suddenly, with a loud noise, the stranger horse fell down in the ice. The man was laying in the ground, trying to get up. I ran forward to help.
A little. Could you help me to catch my horse?
Okay,
Now, could you bridge the horse here, please?
that's right.
Could you help me to get up on its back again?
Good.
Thank you, you miss.
I watched him as he rode away. Who is he? I asked myself. He is not handsome, but he has an interesting face. I would like to know him. That evening, I took Adele to Mr. Rochester's room. I felt rather afraid of meeting Mr. Rochester. I went quickly into the room and saw a man there. I knew him. It was the man on the horse. So the interesting stranger was Mr. Rochester. Mr. Rochester didn't go away again. He was busy every day, but sometimes in the evening he talked to me. He was usually serious, and he did not smile or laugh very often, but he was very interesting. One night I woke up suddenly. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning. I thought I heard a sound. Everything was very quiet. I listened carefully and the sound came again. Someone was walking about outside my room. Who's there? I called. Nobody answered. I felt cold and frightened. The house was silent. I tried to sleep again. Then I heard a loud. It was a terrible, cruel loud. Someone was walking away, going up at the stairs to the attic. What's happening? I decided to go and find Mrs. Fairfax. I put on some clothes and left my room. The house was quiet now, but suddenly I could smell smoke. Something was burning. I ran to find out. The smoke was coming from the Mr. Rochester room. I ran into the room and looked around. Mr. Rochester was asleep in his bed, and the bed was on fire. What can I do? I thought. Quickly I looked around the room. Luckily, there was some water in one corner. As quickly as I found, I took the water and threw it all over bed, and Mr. Rochester woke up. When I got back to Thornfield, everybody was very excited. Mrs. Fairfax was very busy. What's happening?
Ah, Miss Eyre. It is Mr. Rochester. He has Sunday come back. Now he is Miss Eyre. You must go and put on your best dress. Mr. Rochester wants to meet you an hour of dinner.
What's happening? Jane, it is you? What are you doing?
Mr. Rochester, your bed is on fire. You must get up once.
Jane, you have saved me from the fire. How did you know about it? Why did you wake up?
I told him about the noise outside my door and the terrible loud. Mr. Rochester looked serious and angry.
I must go upstairs to the attic. Stay here and wait for me, please. Do not wake me, favor.
At last he came back. He was still looking very serious.
You can go back to bed now, Jane. Everything is all right now.
When Adele finished her lesson, I went downstairs. Mrs. Fairfax met me.
Mr. Rochester left Luz early this morning. He is going to stay with his friends. I think he will stay with them for some weeks. I don't know when he will come back.
One evening, a new visitor came to Thornfield Hall. He was a cute young man with dark hair called Mr. Mason. He came to see Mr. Rochester on business. Mr. Mason told us that he and Mr. Rochester were old friends, but Mr. Rochester was not very pleased to see Mr. Mason. That night, Mr. Rochester and Mr. Mason talked for a long time. At last, very late at night, they went to bed. Soon everyone in the house was asleep. Suddenly, I woke up. I heard a terrible scream from somewhere over my head. Then everything was very quiet again. I listened carefully, and then I heard a lot of noise from above my head. There seemed to be fire in the room above. Then there was another scream.
Help! Come quickly! Help me!
A door opened, and I heard someone running up the stairs to the attic. I quickly put on some clothes and opened my door. Everybody in the house was awake now. The visitors were standing outside their doors. Slowly, all Mr. Rochester's visitors returned to their rooms. I too went back to my room, but I didn't go back to bed. I sat and looked out of the window. The house was very quiet now. There were no sound from the attic. Then some knocked on my door. I opened it. Mr. Rochester stood outside.
Jane, come with me please, but come quickly, follow me.
I followed Mr. Rochester up to the attic. He locked the door of a room and we went inside.
Come here, Jane, come here.
I came further into the room. There was a large bed in the room. Mr. Mason was lying on the bed. His face was white and his eyes were closed. There was a lot of blood on his shirt. He didn't move. He is dead?
No, he isn't badly hurt, but I must go and bring the doctor for him. Will you stay with him until I get back?
The man on the bed moved and tried to speak. Mr. Rochester turned to him.
Don't try to talk, Mason. Jane, don't speak to him, please.
At last morning came and Mr. Rochester returned with the doctor. While the doctor was looking after Mr. Mason, Mr. Rochester spoke to me.
Thank you for all your help. Jane, Mason is going to leave Thornfield. How now? The doctor will take him away.
Before he left, Mr. Mason said something very, very strange.
Look after her, Rochester. Promise to look after her.
I promise we'll always look after her.